This is Reimagining the Contact Center. I'm Marc Bernstein, and today I'm interviewing Tom Laird, founder and CEO at OttoQA. AutoQA has crushed QA automation using AI and LLMs, large language models, for SMB contact centers and even some big enterprise players too. One of the things I loved most about this interview is you can tell that Tom is a bona fide practitioner. He came from the contact center space. He built AutoQA for the contact center space. So there's not a lot of the silly bells and whistles or what they call marketecture to try to convince you to buy a QA product. It's real, solving real problems for real customers. So very excited to introduce to you all, and I hope you enjoy the interview as much as I did doing it. Tom Laird, CEO at OttoQA. Tom, good to see you again. How are you, buddy?
Good, buddy. How you doing, Mark?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm really glad to be interviewing you today. I think that you are one of the founders of AI companies in our space that has a very distinct background that gives you a different perspective on what customers actually truly want from AI, what organizations want from AI, and also like how to build it in a way that's not marketecture, but is real and solving real problems. So to start, could you give a little bit of background on like how did you get to Auto QA and what is your experience in the space?
How long we got here, Mark? We got a while. So I think my whole contact center and moving to the AI space has been a unique experience, right? Where a lot of people say I never thought I was going to be in the contact center space, right? I never thought I was going to run a contact center. Well, I almost always thought I was. Starting when I was very little, my family actually had one of the, I don't want to say first BPOs, but at the time, like a top 10 largest BPO, did a lot of outbound. This is when I was like 9 years old, right? So this is like in the late 80s and then moving into kind of the early 90s. And I grew up totally in the context. Like I was there when the reps were smoking in their booths, right? And kind of doing all that. Even before CTI integration, before there was computers, and then we moved to be having things integrated and saw the technology really starting to move in the contact center space. So I ended up running that BPO, and we were in business for about 25 years. So once 2009 2010 came, the Great Recession turned into the Great Depression for us. So we were working for mostly all financial services companies. So I won't name any names, but out of the top, 15 largest credit card issuers, we were doing customer support for at least 10 or 11 of them. That was our niche. But when, a Bank of America or a Citibank stock goes to like 2, there changes that quickly happen. So a private equity group came in, ended up purchasing kind of, I guess I don't want to say the remnants, but where we were at that point, and said, hey, everything's going to be great, but then ended up firing really all of us about 3 months later. So the cool thing was I had this unbelievably core group of talent that we worked together with for so many years. So Expedia started, long story short, we started Expedia up with a lot of those people who are still here today, going on, 13-14 years ago. So we have about a 500-600 seat BPO that we started with 4 agents. We've grown it from there. So the BPO, the outsourcing side has always been in my DNA. The technology side has always been in my DNA. And then about 16 months ago, I keep changing that, right? It went from 12 months to 13 to now 16, which is, it's such a short period of time when kind of this chat GPT and kind of this new chatbot came out and it's doing crazy things. And, we said, how can we utilize this for our internal customers? So I have a lot of crazy ideas with my IT guys, and most of the time they're like, dude, we can't do that. Like that's going to take us forever. But when I brought up the concept of Auto QA, of saying, hey, can we use, these large language models to prompt and to score QA calls or customer experience calls for QA departments? Can we do that? And they're like, I think that's something that we could really wrap our head around. So we had no plans on having Auto QA. This was a product for Expedia at the time. And then once we saw we had about 13 QA staff that were scoring calls, and once we saw that we didn't need any of them to score calls, we still have a QA department, right? They're still coaching, they're still doing that, but we have nobody scoring calls. We're just using AI to do it. And once we said that, we like, oh my gosh, maybe there's a product here that, again, looking at a lot of companies that maybe are 100 seats or under, they don't have a lot of integrations into a CCaaS. They're doing things manually on Excel spreadsheets. Can we just take that burdensome task of scoring calls away? So we went into proof of concept about 6-7 months ago. It's gone extremely well. I don't know if we're out of beta or not. Like, there's no like, hey, at this date we stopped, but I know we have a bunch of paying customers now that have been on month-to-month plans. We have about 25 to 30 customers in proof of concept right now. So this has really just kind of exploded for us with a tool that, again, we're just trying to take something really small that I think is a throwaway for a lot of CCaaS companies, right? Like the CX1s and the Genesis and the 5.9, they have to have a QA tool, and they're trying to do something that is more automated, but it's not their core business. Kind of the artisanal cheese of the craft beer of this small little niche where we're trying to do just one really small thing, just extremely, extremely well.
Tom, one of the things that, I think I should state here for the record is you were the first person and the first company that started working on LLM-based QA. And I think that's really important because when I think back, I think about Balto and how we truly invented the real-time guidance space, which now, folks will call real-time guidance. Some folks will call agent assist. But you could even go back through the history and say, who was doing this before Balto? When you actually kind of look at when the company started and when they brought products out, like we were the first. And I kind of wish that, we had raised the flag more and been like, we were the first, but
Right.
we had kind of that Midwest humility where we said, there's a lot of people and who knows who was first. And I kind of wish we had planted the flag. So to my knowledge, I'd like to plant the flag for you guys.
Appreciate it. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, you were the first.
I think you're right. And I appreciate that. And I think a lot of the larger players, right, they're trying to do an automated QA. They were doing proprietary scorecards, right? Like, hey, we can just kind of fit this into this. So it's roughly, this is kind of what the agents are doing. And it was a lot of keyword, right? Keyword and analytic driven, instead of actually having a large language model that can actually think through intents and outcomes. I think that's the biggest, right? Not process, right? Not what the agent did, but was there an intent to do something? Was the outcome correct? And to be able to score that like a human, that's what really got me excited. And I think, it was something that we pushed. I wish I would have said that too to my clients. Like, I think you're right. You think you're so little that there has to be somebody else doing this. But no, I appreciate that. It's been a really cool ride for sure.
What is this LLM-based QA approach versus a keyword-based approach? Let's just really clearly articulate what the differences are, where QA was and where companies like OttoQA are taking it.
The best example that I can give to kind of, I think, spark or plant a seed in people's heads is our empathy prompt, like our kind of core empathy prompt. Before, if you look at a lot of QA platforms, or even what agents are taught and what we listen for is, if somebody says, I've ordered this thing 4 times and it's still not delivered, right? We'll say, oh, Mr. Smith, I'm really sorry to hear that, right? And there's these kind of scripted responses that are picked up with analytics that says, okay, yes, they showed empathy, which I think, again, I call that false hustle. I'm doing a whole book on that. We can talk on that another day, right? But to be able to have now responses that actually correlate to issues that customers have. So instead of us looking for keywords that the agent said, I'm really sorry to hear that. Now we can do that, right? Everybody's played with ChatGPT or Sonnet. You can do that. But to look and to have a prompt say, hey, look through the entire call, look through this transcript, find out areas where the customer had a pain point, they had an issue. And instead of looking for a scripted response, let's look for what the outcome of that is, right? When the agent said what they said, did the customer sentiment rise? Did the tone of the customer go up? Did the overall call end in a better space, right? And when we realize that we can do that and have these language models think like that, and you can start to prompt like that, then you start to train your agents at a whole different level. right? And I think that's, again, where we can improve actual customer experience. If we're sticking with the old school models, and I know that's really wasn't the question, but we get kind of stuck with those same kind of responses. But I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is AI can think if you can prompt properly, because it's not that smart. Like, it really listens to every single thing that you're saying. But if you really understand how the models work, you can dig deep into not just looking at what an agent says, or did they say it, even if it was like just with a tone of voice that they could care less about. And normally we would score that as great from an analytics standpoint. But look at the outcome of what happened with that interaction. Look at the intent of what the agent had. And I think that's the biggest difference. And if once we start to understand that, and that we can score that, then we can actually change how our agents interact. And I think that's kind of hopefully the process that we're looking on, of not just being able to score calls, but actually change customer experience, actually make it better for once. We talk about technology, we have all this technology, and customer experience scores still go down. I'm excited for tools like this that I think can actually really have an uptick in CSAT and NPS.
There's the issue of false hustle, where it's like, was that really what was needed, or did someone just literally speak that sentence? And then there's the other issue of all of the false negatives, which is, oh, your speech analytics manager only put in sorry to hear. I am sorry, I'm sorry, but they didn't put that's rough, man.
Right.
And the agent said, that's rough, man. That really was a better form of articulating empathy. But, oh, sorry, that wasn't in the speech analytics engine, so didn't count. But with the LLM-based approach, you can ask it a question, just like you're typing in a question to ChatGPT, and say, look through the entire call, the entire transcript, like considering the context of what happened and how both parties were speaking. Did the agent exhibit empathy? We define empathy as A, B, and C, and then provide your explanation of why you came to that conclusion. And that is like so much more accurate and representative of what's really happening versus the speech analytics approach.
How many times have you seen, and again, we've been so deep now into QA forms from so many different companies, like, and again, I don't want to laugh at any customers, but again, I will tell them to their face, we still have QA forms that say engagement means that you said the customer's name 4 times in the first 2 minutes. I mean, that's false hustle to an extent, right? That is just, doing something to check yourself off of this spreadsheet, when that had nothing to do. Saying thank you after every piece of information 42 times, when you have to give 6 pieces of information to make sure that you're actually talking to the right person. All of those things can go away now, because we can actually use AI to think at scale about what is really important on the call, and redefine kind of what that QA form looks like, to kind of take away some of those things that just, for years and years and years, we thought was really all we could do. And that's maybe the lazy way of taking it out. But I think there's so much really cool things that you could do now to score and also train your agents. Before, you could not score that many calls. A human being, if you every single SOW, SOP that we have is normally on average about 3 calls per agent per week, right? It's very difficult to get really in depth with that. So everything is just process. Did you follow this? And again, I'm not saying that the process is wrong, right? But now with the point of, we can instantly, from like, snap our finger and have thousands of calls scored, right? We don't have to think that way anymore. We can go deeper into it, right? To have an agent, a QA agent, really think through and kind of go back into the call. Did they really mean this? Did they, right? We couldn't do that. So I think that there's a little bit of, just, this is kind of the best way that we can do it right now, to try to get through these calls the best way we possibly can. But I don't think that's the best way anymore. And again, we've seen customers, which is a really cool kind of customer base, is just a brick and mortar company here in the States that is offshored to the Philippines, to India, maybe they're nearshoring to Belize or Central America. And really, the only way that they knew about quality is what was happening, what the BPO was telling them, or if they did a calibration maybe once a week, right? And now, for a couple grand, right, which is nothing for most of these companies, you can have 2,000, 3,000 calls scored instantly, right, to really find out what is happening with that. And then once you feel comfortable with that, then you start to change how you're training. You start to change how you feel comfortable about the process of what we're doing. But we are still stuck in that process world, right? Like there's going to be a lot of education that's going to have to happen with new contact center leaders that are coming up that kind of can look at this a different way based on the new data that we can give.
What are the core capabilities of OttoQA today? What does Otto do?
Let me start with what we don't do, right? The one thing is we are not an analytics company, right? We are not going to give you just a ton of different information. What we are going to do, and Mark, please, I mean, don't get mad at me, but I think we score calls, in the top 1%, right, of any contact center QA, auto QA type software out there. We are the most consistent, and I think we're within that 96% calibrated with what you're going to do. So what we do is we score calls at scale, I think better than anybody else. Especially when you're talking about, maybe that smaller contact center. If you're using Excel spreadsheets, if you're using Google Sheets, like this is it's the no-brainer of no-brainers. I think the other thing is, again, we're not doing any type of seat licenses or any type of contracts, right? We're trying to get people to, especially that smaller guy, to be able to have ROI right away. I think I've seen so many of the larger players, again, I won't name any names, but I'll just stay with CCaaS players, right? That they do these giant seat licenses for some of these things. And again, enterprise-wise, it's a no-brainer because they're still saving a ton of money and they're getting a lot out of it. But the smaller guy that has maybe 5 QA staff or three QA staff, right? It could be kind of burdensome. So I think that's what we do extremely well. We take the time. It's about it was a 2-week process. We got it down to about a 1-week process now, but we build out your form. We know about 80% of everybody's forms are relatively the same with the same questions: empathy, call control, openings, closings, greet, those kind of things. So we have really tight prompts for all of that. And then 20 to 30% is your proprietary things. How do you want to talk? What does the agent need to do? What are your SOPs? And so to be able to, I think, literally manually build those out for customers, and then have that conversation back and forth, show them that we're calibrated before we even do a proof of concept. There's a process that I think is beyond what a lot of the larger enterprise, even CCaaS guys do, that are just trying to try to do this as quick as possible. Because again, when you have 40,000 customers or 30,000 customers, it's very difficult to kind of maybe take the time with every customer to kind of, sounds hokey, but again, like the kind of that Midwestern hands-on approach,
Totally.
right, to try to help build stuff out.
If you think about scoring a call, I'm going to break it up into kind of 3 different categories. There's easy stuff to score based on the conversation. There's hard stuff to score based on the conversation. And then there's stuff to score not related to the conversation, like, did they enter the proper data? Did they notate the account correctly or choose the proper disposition? How does Otto tackle those pieces? Do you tackle all 3 of those pieces? Are all of them automated? Do you have any sort of manual approach? Do you tackle just the conversational elements, and then that means that their QA team is now left to crush data entry? Like, how do you view those components?
Yeah, I mean, and for us, there still are certain things that are limitations. Like when ChatGPT 4.0 came out, I was extremely excited because they talked about video, right? And they talked about images and being able to parse video, but it was a disaster. It was not a product that we were able to use. I mean, the Achilles heel for us is the screen recording, right? What did the agent do? Did they pull this down into enter this into their Salesforce? Did they do something on their screen? Did they schedule appropriately? We don't. Hopefully, when ChatGPT 5 comes, maybe we'll have insights into that. So that's the one thing that we don't do yet. Still looking for some avenues, and when that comes out, we are ready to roll with it. But I think it's really interesting. You talk about kind of the easy and the hard, right? So that 80% of everybody's stuff is relatively easy, right? We understand empathy. Now, we might not understand it for your company, but we can tweak what we have. Call control, those kind of things. We get to the difficult things where, everybody just talks about this, Mark, and you've heard this too. Like all they're doing is they're creating a GUI on top of an LLM, and it's super easy. You just prompt a couple things, you send it out, and you get all this information. When there's so much into it that it's insane. Like, the example that I give, we had to work through, and then not only are we using LLMs, but we're using programming, we're using the transcript to get different segments of time, right? Is how do you tell the difference? We have a customer that has the difference between silence, hold time, right, and transfer hold time, right? And when a human being can kind of pick up on those things very quickly, but an LLM, it's extremely difficult. But there's ways based on what is said on the call, based on the length and things that we were able to do from a programmatic standpoint. So I think 90% of everything that we can do, our prompt engineers, we can create, we have it down, and that's most people's forms. But then you get like a couple weird things that are a little bit more difficult that, again, we bring the IT guys in and we can kind of program our way through as well. The next thing that we're working on too, that I think is getting a little bit more difficult, but we're getting better at, is the rated question, right? Binary yes or no questions are fine, but to have, on a scale of 1 to 10, and some companies give points that way.
That's super tough for Balto as well.
And it's, again, because it's if you and I scored that, Mark, we're going to be way off. Like, and it's kind of talking to the customer with that as well. And again, it's the black and white. And then we have to just basically get, what is a 1? What is a 5? What is a 10? Show us exactly. And then we can kind of build that around. But again, most companies are still binary. I think the cool thing is we've been able to talk a lot of customers to improving their form, right? Because this is kind of how the old way was. But hey, we can do all this really cool stuff now that we already have pre-built into it. So I think a couple of these questions are redundant. So even looking at that kind of stuff to try to help companies. But yeah, it's been the things that I know you guys have learned, the things that we have learned, the things that you have to kind of think your way through, and how dumb the models are, but how smart they are at the same time.
Strange.
That's the crazy thing. And then how different the models are, right? How it's totally different on how you prompt certain things and what picks up with certain words. So again, people can do this stuff internally, but it's a pretty difficult road to kind of get all of this nuance to what they want to do.
I'll give 2 Balto examples there. The first is, on the 1 to 10 scale, we find that the LLMs are very scared to award 9s and 10s, 1s and 2s. Because they're like, well, imagine, did they handle the customer's complaint well? It's like, unless the customer is like, you saved my children, you saved my house. They're like, I don't know if that's a 10.
Right.
Or unless, the agent, said, I'm coming after you. I have your address here in the CRM. I know where you live. They don't want to give it a 1. Yeah. So, it's a little bit hesitant to award on the extremes. So a lot of the scores, in that example, tend to fall between 4 to 7, which helps. And it's good at being directionally correct, at being like, okay, 6 or 7, that's like much better than a 4 or 5. But so it's good at being directionally correct. And the nuance is all right, but it's small range. It's not getting the full range.
And Mark, just to kind of go with what you're saying there, we never tell a customer or a client, like, so we'll get 10 calls. We'll get what they scored those calls on when we're building out their form so that we can calibrate to them. We never say that Otto is right or wrong, because we're trying to not, see what's right or wrong. We're just trying to score exactly how the customer scores, right? So certain questions like, we give a little bit there, and Otto might be black or white. So we have to go change and tweak that prompt. Where other questions are, Tom, this disclosure has to be, they can't even say if they say right? It has to be absolute. And then, we have to make sure that happens there too. So that's normally what we see is, you always get the rubric from the customer and kind of, this is kind of everything goes. But then when you do a calibration, like, I know that said that, but really we kind of give a little bit here. And I think that's where those conversations are really helpful to, again, not be right or wrong. All I care about is that we're scoring like you guys score.
So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on those 2 questions, calibration, and then, what does the role of a QA team that's now using Otto look like?
You have to get the trust of the QA team, and it's not always easy, right? It's the manager of that is all on board, right? They're all about it. They want to do it. They see the benefit. But when you're talking to those, 7 or 8 QA managers, it's like, again, I think that there's some trepidation into it. So, you have to be able to trust, they have to start to be able to trust. So again, what we do is we do a demo. Everything looks good on the demo. We'll sign an NDA with the customer. That NDA gets signed, and then we ask for 10 to 15 random calls. I say, don't trick me right now. Like, well, again, there'll be time to trick me, but send me your scorecard, and then again, your rubric or whatever information you have on that. We have a setup call with them, ask any questions, and then we start to build. Again, normally took about 2 weeks. We're down to about a week with it now, getting better and better, and using some AI tools to help build this in kind of our library. And then what we do is we create an Excel spreadsheet, right? Or a Google sheet. And we have all the questions on the top row. And then we have where the customer, how they scored every question, and then how Otto has scored every question. And what we'll do is anything that we mark a field as red, when our prompt engineers that are building this, they agree that the customer was more correct, right? If it's red, and if it's blue, we think that Otto was more correct. So our goal is to get it beige, which is we're totally aligned, or blue. So we go through and we will take that week and we will tweak those prompts and change it and listen, very hands-on to get everything as close as we possibly can. You know, we won't go to proof of concept till we're about 95, 96% calibrated off of every single one of the questions.
How long does that usually take?
It's about a week now, maybe a little bit over, depending on the size of the program or how many they send us, but
super fast.
It went from 2 weeks to, to back down to a week. I think we have some extra staff on here now too, as well, which I think has helped.
Can the customers meet that timeline? Like, are they able to have their QA team dig in with you and spend, a hardcore week getting this done? Or do you find that they tend to stretch it out? Because you guys can deliver in a week, but
the POC does. So we try to be very assertive. Like when I do the demo, they send us everything. We'll try to schedule a call that week as quickly as we possibly can. We'll take our week. Now this is going to be more on you, and this is where it can drag, right?
Yeah.
So we will get their agents uploaded onto the platform. We'll get their QA managers uploaded on the platform, show them how to run the tool. And then I say, trick us, do whatever you want. I don't care what calls you want. We feel like we're calibrated through a big swath of them. Are we going to have to make some tweaks? Yeah, we'll probably make some tweaks to prompts. But also try to set them up with a call a week later, right? Hey, this is Thursday. Can we talk Thursday or Friday to kind of, I don't say put their feet to the fire, but just, make sure that it becomes a little bit of a priority. Give them a week. And again, our proof of concept, depending on the size, is anywhere from 50 to 200 calls that they can run. And then spot check and calibrate. And then we'll have that call. A lot of times, though, as they're doing it, they're like, hey, can you look at this? Can you look at this? And then hopefully by that call that we have, we'll probably tweak a little bit, maybe have a couple more days. But it's been about a 3-week full process. That number really hasn't changed too much from, kind of a demo, or I should say NDA, to, okay, we think we're cool. Let's do that first month and kind of get this paid. And again, I think from the usage model has made that has allowed them to do another month of a paid proof of concept that's just a couple $100, right? So it's not like they got to go all in right at the beginning to be like, all right, I hope this works.
I hate your guys' usage model.
Being small and little has its benefits.
Not saying it's wrong, but I hate it. Because, tech companies like at Balto's scale and, the Series B and the, we get valued, based on committed, recurring annual revenue. And you guys are coming in saying, we're just going to give the customer the most friendly possible pricing we can. The commitment is if they like it, they stay. If they don't, they leave. And it's super attractive. But boy, does it make things tougher for companies like Balto.
It does, but I think, Mark, we have different products, right? I mean, we really do. I mean, if you look at your dashboards, you look at kind of the analytic avenue that you can give. Like there's like you're going from not just an AutoQA, but kind of merging the analytics piece with it too. Well, for us, we're just scoring your stuff. If you want to like do what you already have in the platform, we allow you to pull all that data out. You can run it with a BI tool, right? But I think, there's a little bit of a difference there with, again, and that's looking at an enterprise customer versus maybe somebody that's just using the Excel spreadsheet that's, has 25 agents and they want to do something. So I think that there's it's a little black and white, but we're doing the same thing in I guess in purpose.
interestingly, I think, your guys' approach will work for, a type of enterprise customer
Yeah.
that wants access to the data and isn't expecting like a fully featured BI tool inside their QA platform.
And and we struggle with this too, right? Like we struggle with the whole concept of this is what we do and we do it really well. And let's not veer, but let's do this. Let's swerve. I think that's kind of
Yeah.
what we've taken it, right? So like certain things, we give on our evaluation the four things that the agent did well, four things where the agent could improve upon, right? And to build out on that, like using, and I'll just say, we use Haiku, which is basically free. I mean, it's so inexpensive. To basically anytime that an agent gets, depending on what the customer wants, 50 or 100 evaluations, we'll send those four things that they could have improved on to Haiku to summarize. So we're not doing every call, but we call it a coaching trending report, right? So out of the last 100 calls, here's the four things that they've kind of struggled with, where they need to be coached a little bit more, or maybe you just got to take them off this one skill.
Super smart.
And then the last thing, and I've been talking about it forever, and we're in final proof of concept here, is our redo technology, right? To have an agent that bombs a call, has a 62 or has an auto fail, and for them to go into to their agent portal, click redo, and we found that you can take the transcript, rip what the agent said out, just keep the customer name, what their tone was, their problem, all their issues, send it out to the models using AI voice. And then instead of you and me role playing it, they can then role play with the AI avatar of the customer that they just screwed up with.
Unreal.
Right. So I think there's again, it's still within our domain, but a little bit of a coaching tool that I think could be kind of cool to kind of go full circle on this. And I could just literally walk down the hall and be like, hey guys, let's do this. And if they like it, then we kind of just do it. I'm not saying it's the best way, but it's kind of worked so far.
It's badass. If I could ask about, the QA workflow again, like, so
Yes,
what does a QA team do now in 2024 when they're using, OttoQA?
Mark, you're totally right. I mean, the trust is still needs to be built. So we still have customers that they're still calibrating calls, right? There's still a little bit of a frustration level when, they'll send us 5 calls with 2 things that they thought were not right. Right. And we have to just keep saying, hey guys, listen, we're not going to be 100%. We're going to be in that 95, 96%. So again, out of all of these calls. But I think what we have seen is, one of our customers has then just basically moved a lot of their QA staff to kind of a technology, kind of looking at some of these newer tools and kind of what else can we do? We've seen a lot of the QA staff go back to coaching or go back on the phones, right? I haven't really seen, again, a lot of people just kind of let go, or I think that if you're in QA, you're really important, right? Like you have intimate knowledge of what's going on in these calls. You can coach, you can supervise. So it's a talent that isn't just like a entry level. You're not just hiring somebody off the street to go into your BPO, go into your contact center and just start recording calls or start scoring calls. These guys have run that program. They're really good at it. So again, from a supervisor, QA doesn't go away. Just the painful aspect of scoring the damn call does. And I think, we're seeing more benefits to having those guys create KMS. Like that's been a thing. We've taken 3 of our QA
Nice.
agents. They're actually building out our KMS now, right? They can do these other things to help maybe with other AI tools down the road that, you don't need the 5 people that are just sitting scoring calls for 40 hours a week, losing their mind over hearing the same thing.
Let's wrap with one kind of bigger question on AI. Where do you see auto going in the world of AI, and where do you see AI going over the next, call it 3 years?
Every time we talk, I have a different answer. Like if I'm going to
Because it's
be
moving so
the
fast.
biggest flip flopper like of all time on this, and from an auto QA standpoint, for us, we have our first CX1 integration that's ready to roll. For us, integrations are everything right now. So our Genesis 5.9, UJet, looking at all of these kind of major and kind of medium CCaaS players, we have to have easy integrations. I think that that's really important for us. Um, the video, right? The screen recording for us is a huge Achilles heel. I think when the technology comes out, we're going to be able to move extremely fast. We've been talking about it forever. We're ready to roll with it, with what we think from a prompting standpoint that will look like. We just need a tool to actually do it. I think that's important. And the other thing, Mark, is the security aspect, right? Like, people need to start talking more on, what do we need? What is the standard, right? Like, we have for the LLMs, we have, PCI and SOC 2 and all these ISO compliance things. And, if you're getting a transcript, you have that. But, I've had a lot of conversations on what do we need, right? Beyond that, like what is the next level of security? I think that's a really important piece that we're kind of thinking through. When it comes to AI in general, like I am very skeptical in the next year of where things are going from the agent aspect. I mean, I think a lot of, as we're recording this yesterday, even, that kind of that white paper from whitehouse.gov came out that talked about, if you're going to put agents on with a chatbot of any type, and if for a cancel or a retention, then you have to have a one button push to go to an agent, right? Like there's this aspect of people are starting to see where this is going. I'm still pretty skeptical of non-enterprise customers getting into the space quickly. I think we failed miserably, as I've said, I mean, ad nausea, we don't have KMS. Integrations aren't there. Nobody's talking about that. People just say, I want to do AI, right? So the fundamental first step is not being done. And again, as a cheap plug, I think that's why BPOs and outsourcers may have a little bit of an advantage here, right? We can help you kind of get through and kind of do all that. But I am not naive. I see where things are going. I see the intelligence of this thing every single time just get better and better and better. When ChatGPT 5 comes out, or maybe a Sonnet 3.5 Opus, right? Or a Claude 3.5 Opus comes out, maybe that's a game changer deal too. So the cool thing about you and AI with us is I hope these large language models keep fighting it out and keep getting better and better. I don't care who wins. We just try to keep using the tool as best as we can. Hopefully the prices continue to go down. But we want the intelligence to keep going up. And at a certain point, there's going to be some type of big takeover. I was thinking in the next 3 years, maybe it's 5 years. But I think there's a lot of things we got to still work through from the security aspect to, getting people to have the fundamental tools to actually do it. Unless AI is going to do that for them, at a certain point as well. So I don't know. Like what I'm basically saying is I don't know where things are going. I just see a lot of noise in a lot of different places that it's just hard to put the dots together to see what's really going to happen.
I bet AI could put the dots together.
Right. And maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe that's what's going to happen.
Tom, you are a brilliant startup founder. So much respect for what you've built. So much respect for your perspective and how you guys are bringing AI to the contact center. Thank you for spending time with me. This rocked as always, and I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, buddy. It's always good to talk to you. I think, our perspectives, it's really cool, right? We have the same perspective, but like a different niche, right? To each of these. So it's cool to talk to you. And yeah, man, we'll keep doing this.
Well, I'm an OpenAI super fan, and I know you're a.
I am not, right. I'm a Claude guy.
So we gotta get some sponsorships, and I'll wear an OpenAI shirt. You wear a Claude shirt.
Right. Love it. All right, Mark.